Hello, hello, Internet. Hello, world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Got It Live. I'm your host, Sam Basu, and it is Friday. I know for sure it's a Friday because some days I get confused, but I have guests here, so it has to be Friday. And our one rule on the Friday chat shows is we don't share screen. So Todor, Mariyan, you might find this funny. Yesterday, I did a stream where for 1 hour, I could not even get my code to compile. So this will obviously go better because I'm not sharing screen. So for context, we had started the chat show last year. With the pandemic, we were missing out, hanging out with people in the real world. So I took like half an hour, 45 minutes every Friday to just genuinely talk to people, passionate people about what they do, what they find exciting and inspiring. But today we actually have more than one guest, and it's a very special episode. I'm excited about this, and I see chat room is getting full, and our good friend Ivana is here. Hi. Hello, Ivana. So we have two very special guests, and I'm told one more guest will join us. He's in a meeting, so we will have another person join us. But Mariyan, let's start with you. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi. First, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited. I don't remember ever streaming anything on Twitch, so that's a first for me, and it's a great first thing to do on a Friday. But yes, my name is Mariyan. I am part of Progress, and specifically, I work in learning and development. So anything that has to do with learning, growing, doing new things, and figuring out how to do that, I very much like to geek out about it.
Absolutely. And before I go to Todor, our good friend Tail Learn Code is here. Hello, sir. How are you? We are hanging out here today, Chad, talking about a different topic because I normally interview one person at a time, but today I have three, so it should be fun. Todor, let's go to you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hey everybody, thanks Sam for having me. My name is Todd Totef. I've been part of Progress for more than 10 years already. Started my journey as a .NET developer, then dabbed a little bit with the cloud services, and now I am information developer for our content management system. So it's a pleasure being here with all of you.
Nice. I'm not at 10 yet, so I don't have as much of a runway as you do. I think I'm reaching 10 early next year, but good to have both of you. Now, you explain what you do, but both of you are actually in Sofia, Bulgaria, right?
That's true, and it's 15,000 degrees here outside right now, just so you know.
It's warm. It's been an interesting summer. Like I am in kind of northwest Pennsylvania. We have had actually a few colder days, but now it's back to summer. And I know the U.S. West Coast is dealing with a heat wave. It's very warm. Ivana is saying you're being boiled alive.
Yep.
Oh boy. Yeah, climate change. What do you do? Sometimes we have to take a step back and do the little things to hopefully get things right slowly. But we are here to talk about Pride. This is a very special month, June, and we are a little late in the month, but at least say better late than never. I want to learn. I want to have an open conversation. So let's start, and maybe Mariyan, you could go here. But tell us a little bit about Pride Month. Where did this thing start?
So the first thing I want to say is that Pride Month is not a universal thing. Some countries would celebrate it in February, others would celebrate it right now in June.
Interesting.
In general, there isn't a one fixed month to celebrate it. The one thing to consider, however, of why is it in June in the United States, and also why are we acknowledging it, for example, in Bulgaria as well, is that this is connected with the riots and basically the situation that happened in Stonewall. And it happened exactly in June when there was this uprising, so to speak, of demanding respect and equal treatment, and ultimately that trickled down to decriminalizing homosexuality, period, in the United States. And then, of course, that trickled down to, like, you can find how that would then affect other countries beyond. So ultimately, for me, Pride is not so much June, or it's not so much a month, but it is really an opportunity to reflect on the history of the queer community, and for everyone who would associate with any of the letters in the abbreviation of LGBTQ plus, everything that also goes within the plus. And also it's an opportunity to think about A, how far we have gotten, and B, how much more we have to go.
Right.
So yeah, for me, that's the most important thing.
Well said. I was looking up some history last night on some things that I could look up. So here's a link, and you're right. So this was the Stonewall Bar, I think, in New York City, June 28, 1969, when they were protesting the police invasion. Exactly. And that was like the first like full-scale kind of riot and protest to say we need equal rights. Yeah. And like in 2021, like we can look back and say, why is human right debatable? Like we are all humans here. But yeah, things are not so simple. Definitely, like you said, a lot of progress have been made, but there's a lot of work to be done. And you mentioned a few of the letters here, and we were talking about people from like a wide spectrum, right? When you say LGBTQ plus, could any of or either of you kind of explain really quick what's the big spectrum we're talking about here?
Todor, you want to go, or should I continue?
Before going to this topic, I simply want to mention that Pride has one more goal. Me, Mariyan, you, Sam, probably many of other people watching us are fortunate to live in countries and cultures where actually Pride could happen. But there are people who live in places where this cannot happen. And for them, because I've talked to some people in such places, even the idea that somewhere in the earth this could happen gives them strength to continue their lives. So this is something which people don't talk very often about this, but I think it's important to be mentioned.
Absolutely. It is a privilege. Absolutely. Like with our surroundings, with our family and our place of work and our country, to be able to acknowledge we are all humans and we are diverse. So Mariyan, do you want to talk about all the different things we are talking about here? Like who is Pride for?
Well, the easy answer, without going to all the nuances of what I'm going to say, is it is for everyone who supports this, in certain cases, radical idea that the LGBTQ plus community deserves equal rights and deserves human rights, and basically fighting the good fight, so to speak. The more nuance here is that, first and foremost, Pride is an opportunity for the it's an opportunity for the community and the members of the community to come together, show that we exist, that there is visibility. Because I think that there is a very important point that Todor made there about visibility, that there are people who are putting themselves in a position to show that there are other cases. And again, it is getting better, even if it right now in some places of the world it's not fantastic. But it is getting better, and I think this is a consideration to make. But it is also, I think that there is, as celebratory as there is celebrating how far we have gotten, there's also a political aspect in the sense of exactly that, human rights, and what do those look like in legislation? Because it is very easy to get complicit and feel like we have gotten to a point in some places of the world where there's nothing more to, again, politicize about or enact. But it is so easy for some of those rights to get taken back. It's basically a simple vote that could be swung in many different ways. So it's about continuing that. And also the other thing to consider is that there is not a single LGBTQ plus global experience. Every location, every society, every culture is bringing their own specifics, their own struggles, their own challenges. And just because we can go out in Sofia and have a Pride 2 weeks from now, rather 2 weeks prior, that doesn't mean that was always possible. And I cannot say in full honesty that I could see that being possible like a few years from now. I cannot say, because likewise there are countries where even that would be a very radical, impossible idea.
Yeah, no, very well said. Very well said. And progress has been made, but again, some things can be reversed. There is politics, there is legislature here, absolutely. Okay, so Chad is bringing up a great point, and I want to talk about that. But since you mentioned visibility, I'm going to drop in two more things that I saw that I felt good reading. So this is new. I think it was last week or maybe earlier this week. When we are growing up as kids, we often kind of look up to role models, right? And like professional athletes are great role models. And in the Americas, the National Football League, this is the first. And you might say, what is the big deal? But Las Vegas Raiders has, I think his defensive person, Carl Nassib, came out as gay. And this is a big deal because it kind of reflects the visibility aspect of what you said. And I was reading this article, and it is stunning, like how, even like in this day and age, how we feel. Because one of the first comments was, this person should be acknowledged for the sporting abilities on the field. Why does his lifestyle choice matter? Except like, they're using the word choice, and again, we are humans. It's not a matter of choice, right? And I felt very good reading the article that it shows you, gives you that visibility, gives you that belongingness, right?
I can comment on that. I don't know if I should, but I kind of like it. I feel the need. I think that this is one of the talking points that I like in general we get exposed to so often. Okay, like do whatever you want, just don't make such a big deal out of it. And I find that so sometimes difficult to connect to as a viewpoint, because it isn't like I'm trying to make a huge deal out of it on purpose. I'm trying to, again, live my life, which again means that there are situations where I'm living my life and other people see that alone small thing as making a big deal out of it. Because you would never tell a person, let's say attending a wedding, whichever wedding that is, why are you making such a big deal out of it? Exactly. Or why do you need to let the world know what your lifestyle is? Do it in the privacy of your own home. So there is an unequal playing field that comes there, and I think to your question earlier of what is kind of like the binding thread of the abbreviation of our community, I think this is one aspect of it. How very easy it is to use this blanket talking point of why make such a big deal out of who you are when it's not, but in reality people are reacting as if it is, which I think is part of the conversation. But yeah, Todor, I don't know if there's something you would like to add.
Yeah, it's hard for me to talk about this matter because I have personal friends who were denied job opportunities because they are trans people, and the name of their ID cards is not the presentation they have as persons. So it's very easy in some places just to tell you, we'll contact you later. And then what? How you do become a better professional if you cannot start at all? It's interesting question.
Yeah, it is not a level playing field, and the biases, and then we'll get back to Chad's question, like what can be done. But on the sports front, since we talked about sports for a little bit, in the Olympics that's coming up, I think in 2 months, New Zealand is sending its first trans athlete, and I think US is trying to do too. I mean, it's not confirmed yet. So that's on the sports world. But I want to get back to Todor, what you said, like for our industry, like we try to think that we are in a bubble where we are all trying to, like, whenever somebody joins our industry, right, we want to have a level playing field where it is your skills that's going to make you succeed in whatever you do. But you mentioned a little bit about your experiences or somebody of your friends. Where do you think the software industry is doing, and what is the experience that we're trying to alter maybe?
For me, it's interesting that if you look at the Stack Overflow yearly survey, around they have been asking this question about your gender identity, sexual orientation for the last maybe 2 or 3 years. And surprisingly, the number stays quite similar, at least surprising for me. So we have around 7% homosexual persons and around 1% transsexual persons. And then when I go in the office and at the meetings, I don't see these people. So we are there, but we are somehow invisible. And this is not that bad, of course. When I'm in professional setting, I'm top professional. I'm a developer. I have to write code or create documentation. But still, being part of these minorities has its issues. Sometimes, especially in more excluding cultures, you need to live the double life. And it's hard, it's exhausting, and it prevents you from giving 100% of your mental capacity to do your work. It's especially challenging when you're in a managerial position, because then you need to break your walls, expose yourself to the team, be a focal point of the team, and help your colleagues. And at the same time, you need to bring up the wall and keep a significant part of yourself hidden. So for me, maybe this is one of the biggest challenges, that you need to have 2 separate lives and have constantly, vigilantly to check what you are doing, what you are saying, what you are not saying. And this is something which really, really, really bugs me.
Yeah. No, this is, no, and I cannot appreciate you talking about this, because this is emotional, this is personal, and
Yeah.
It's difficult to live a double life where you're trying to where you cannot be yourself. And it's unimaginable that as a society we would not let a human be themselves, and this is hard. So let's get to the thing that our good friend Taylor Code was asking, and you kind of referred to this, Todor. What can the software industry do to be better? What is maybe one thing maybe we should do less of or more of?
Mariyan, can you help me with this? I think this
help
is
me.
a little better question for you to answer.
Yeah.
So I think on a very ground level, I can start with the software industry and I can talk about like personal example, but like on an industry, and not just like software, it goes beyond software. I think it's currently we as a society, and I say this fully aware that there is no one global society, but I think that it's more and more this energy to talk about inclusion and diversity in practice, what it means beyond the again, some misconceptions of what it is, and ultimately how are we bringing every viewpoint or every person to the table so that together we can create whatever we are creating in our industry. And with this regard, I think I can use the progress example specifically because I think there is a very strong example to be made of like communities like the one that we have at Progress. Specifically, I'm talking about ERGs, meaning employee resource groups. We are part of PLUS, which is the LGBTQ plus employee resource group here at Progress. And this is a voluntary run, entirely employee, again, initiated, backed by the organization, space where those conversations, which may be awkward for some, which may be completely novel for others, or maybe actually something that was, high time happened for a third group of people, we put all of those perspectives together and we normalize just talking about it. We normalize the visibility of the aspect of, okay, we are not only robots doing a certain kind of work. There are people behind the work that's coming out of people who create, like me, the learning materials, people who create the code, people who create the support documentation, people who create anything. And those people are bringing themselves to work. They're not only bringing a facet of themselves when they're doing work. Whether you know about it or not, it is a fact of life that when you come to work, you bring yourself to work. And I think with an ERG, and in general, and then seeing how many are being formed and how that conversation is spreading, is not only this is a very good opportunity to provide visibility that there are other people within this microcosmos of the organization who could relate to what you're saying. It's a fantastic learning opportunity to learn a different perspective and again, ask questions and start talking about it. So to the specific questions answer, what can you do on a day-to-day basis, how to be an ally in action? I would think it's just that ask questions or talk about it, or ultimately go beyond thinking of a whole facet of society, what someone else wants you to think of them, rather than finding your own personal examples and personal stories and personal impression of this group. So I think this is a very good opportunity to do exactly just that. Those are my two parts of the answer. I hope that made sense.
No, that's amazingly well said. And I think Ivana in the chat room has been talking about the same thing that you just mentioned. Yes, we are all working in the software industry. We are churning out code, or we are doing HR work. We are doing legal work. We are all like cogs in like a bigger wheel. But to your point, like, we're all humans. We are bringing ourselves to work. So what we do has a very big impact on how welcome we feel when we come to work, be it at our homes during the pandemic. It's about the people that you work with.
I think it also goes beyond that, if I may, Sam. I think it also goes beyond that, like how welcome you're feeling. I think it also goes beyond of like what opportunities are presented to you, and like who is allowing or not allowing something to happen just on the basis of this part of human, of your humanity. I mean, another thing to consider is, again, how much is the voice that you're having being heard? Like, who hears that voice? Because no one person does code. Like, sure, I could think of like some apps or some games that were written by one person, but then that is being sold and purchased and interacted with and supported by a group of people. So I think it is very difficult for me to say that it's only the output of what we generate that goes into our work, because it's part of like interacting with this network that basically becomes a system. So it's very difficult to detach and unpack or uninstall certain parts and only compartmentalize it and bring it out only when it's available. I find that very difficult to imagine how it could work like in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's acknowledge the chat room here a little bit. I see some chat going on. We read S5. Hello. And Chad came back to say, whatever it is that you do, like, the software industry is not just about coders, but if you are talking about people who code, then it's written by good people, and it's hard to be a good person. Yeah, absolutely right. And then Lexina 1404. Yeah, it is people. I think that's just doubling down on the sentiment that it's people, it's humans. Yeah.
So I can use this to remind everyone that all the things we learn as software professionals, to be inquisitive, to understand how system works. It's a great approach to also understanding your colleagues and the people you work with generally. So it's better to be stupid once, ask the hard question, what Mariyan said previously, and then stop being stupid for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is good when you do a code review. This is good when you meet a new person. This is good when you feel uncertain about some topic. Just be polite, be open-minded, and people are happy to talk about their lives, about themselves. So there are very few wrong questions to be asked. And if you
absolutely.
don't want to ask your mother something, probably it's not a good question to ask your colleagues.
Yeah,
it's easy to understand which are these questions.
Yeah, that is so true. And speaking of that, so here's another something I was looking up. And there are so many facets to raising kids, and we have a kid that we are raising, and we want to think that we are modern parents, but there are just so many facets in which kids feel marginalized if they are not being able to be themselves, right? So there's just a lot to learn and have that open communication as we are bringing up kids, because again, we don't know what the person is going to be once they grow up. So we can just provide that loving, nurturing environment as we are raising kids to let them be whoever they are and let them succeed in life. And Chad also brought up a very good point on something you said, Todor. We have this thing called the imposter syndrome, which we have all dealt with. Like sometimes you question, am I good enough to do this? But then think about having to do this when you cannot be yourself. That's just such a huge challenge. So, yeah. Absolutely. And to this point, like Mariyan, you mentioned inclusion and diversity, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the ERGs, but there's just so many ways to this. Like I think Get Booped was talking about Asperger's syndrome, and there are so many facets of inclusion, so many people from every walk of life bringing who they are to work. And it's up to us and the industry and every workspace to let people flourish and then let people who be who they are. Yeah, so you mentioned ERGs. So let me ask you a little bit more. So, and this is something we are seeing, thankfully, across a lot of different companies now, employee resource groups. What are they? Like, what are the beginnings of this? And when did they start? How does an ERG essentially operate?
I can tell you how Plus started, because
yes,
it
please,
is extremely not an impressive, inspirational story to put on a practice, to put on a poster and be like, hey, this is like, make a movie out of it. No, it was just me getting together with Todor as well as Nenko, our third co-head of Plus, and we're like, do you want to do this? We're like, yeah, sure, let's do this. And it actually came out from the example. We have another ERG with more history in the company that's called Progress for Her, and it's about female empowerment in the workplace. And they did a presentation of what they did in order to make Progress for Her happen. And I think this gave us an opportunity to kind of like think, okay, so maybe we can do it. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. None of us has organized something similar, and all of us have a day job, basically something that we do at Progress that is part of our job description and also beyond, something that we do every day. So we decided to do this on top of us because it's personally relevant, and also because we found that other people would find it personally relevant as well. And ultimately, that's how it started. And from that very simple, sure, let's try it out, we have learned along the way how important also it is to outline very clearly what you're trying to do, and also very clearly have the support of the overall organization. Because if Progress was not okay with us talking about this, I don't think this would have ever happened. And if we didn't have the specific security, and I say this security in the psychological as well as on the very direct sense of the word, that it's okay to do that. You're not going to get penalized, you're not going to get punished, you're not going to get ostracized because of it. This is actually something that we want to do and organize and provide this space, because we acknowledge that, like, we as a company, as a global company, we have many different conversations we need to have. But Todor, am I missing something? Because you were also there for that part of the journey.
Yeah, I had to quickly Google it. There is this law that you will ship your organizational chart. So it's better to make it sure it's a good one. And with ERGs, people within a company enables that company to actually improve and fix some blind spots, whether in the organization, in people's culture, and ultimately because in an ERG there are people from different walks of life and with different professions. Me as a developer, I used to speak to developers and my manager. Now in the ERG, I can speak to lawyers, seniors, executives, marketing people, sales people, and all these people bring their professional experience, their personal experience, and then enrich me as professional. So for me, ERGs have this very, very good way to improve myself as professional, and it's not like its focus and the first task for its existence, but it's a very, very good side effect.
Yeah. And Mariyan, you said like we are up to, I think, 5 or 6 ERGs now internally.
Good question. I think it's
yeah,
either
so
5 or 6. I have to
yeah,
count.
so yeah, which is very, very, very good. So let me ask you on this front, like when you started this and you're doing the work, what is exciting for you, and what do you think are the challenges? Is it important for you to have company leadership that wants you to do this?
I want to say it's not only important for me, I think it's important, period, because if, and I'll start with the leadership part because before bringing it home to me, I think otherwise, like you need this message sent clearly that, again, those are conversations worthwhile having. If you don't have that backing, I'm not saying that you cannot do it as a grassroots organization, but it would be far more difficult and very easy to be there one day, disappear the next. And I think by positioning again as part of an overall strategic endeavor, and as a company we want to do that, I think that is ultimately a way to provide beyond that. Yes, it's do it, we're interested in this as a company, but also I want to just unpack a little bit on this safety that I mentioned. I think especially with an LGBTQ plus ERG, there is a lot of anxiety of what it means to be a part of one, and how people are going to react to me being engaged with the topic, with the people, with the ERG in general. So without this extra layer of context that could come from senior leadership or from the organization as a whole, it's very difficult to start anything. And for me, one thing that I found personally very energizing is the conversations that we're having, people asking questions and talking about it. Even if it sounds awkward, and even if it sounds like, why did you ask that? It still starts a conversation. And I'm far happier with people asking uncomfortable questions as long as they're respectful and that comes from a place of learning, rather than just being quiet about it because we're afraid of not talking about it. So, and I can give a very specific example. In the early moments of Plus, when we started, it gave an opportunity for, we have 2 members who are allies. They're not part of the LGBTQ plus community specifically, but they have family members that are. And it was an opportunity for them to connect and get a perspective which could they then bring home and again enrich the conversation and the nuance that otherwise you don't have access to.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Chad here is bringing up another good point, which is so true. Like, and to the points that you have mentioned, like diversity is such a wide spectrum, right? You have our individual sexual gender identities. We have race. We have ethnicity. We have color, and just so many things across the spectrum. And when we are shipping products as like technical products, we have to keep that diversity in mind, because otherwise, like, not only are you doing disservice to you functioning as an individual at your job, you're not also shipping things that make sense for everybody. Yeah, great point, Chad. Great point. Todor, is there anything you wanted to add?
I would like to,
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add that our products do not exist to be sold. Our products exist to solve our customers' problems. And our customers are a diverse bunch of people. You have people with different races, different cultures, different countries, different languages, different purchasing power, and sometimes it's very, very hard to get the grip of all these small differences. So when the organization has these small differences in itself and hear their voices, ultimately this leads to a much, much better product on the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so easy to forget the kind of audiences you're catering to worldwide, especially for a global tech company. Like keeping all the diversity, keeping all the disabilities in mind, it is quite staggering how much we can forget. Our good friend Eagle is here in the chat room. Hey. My kitchen is very clean because I'm just too lazy to bring down my green screen. It just stays on all week long. Even though I can do away with when I'm not coding, but hey, I'm lazy. So let me ask you this. The ERG internally, how do you function? Like, what's your ways of communicating? How do you get together? How do you communicate with leadership? So essentially, what's the USP?
Do you want to go or should I?
I think it's better for you to answer this.
Sure, I can.
Yeah.
So I think the communication with the leadership is really easy because we have two members of senior leadership that are, we call them sponsors. It's not like that they sponsor anything specifically, but rather it's a very good opportunity to talk about some of those conversations on a broader level of how does this impact the organization? For example, how can we collect more viewpoints? How could we reach a wider pool of candidates, so on and so forth? All of those things that have impact beyond the day-to-day experiences of one single person. And it's a very good relationship, and I think this brings a lot of value to us existing as an ERG. But other than that, on a day-to-day specifics, we have our own Teams chat. We use Teams, where we're just having a conversation and usually welcoming new people, talking about something that we've found or read or find interesting. We would have a Q&A on some very specific topics. One topic I can call out is, for example, if you are collecting gender data, what options to use on a drop-down menu, which I think is a fantastic way to go to like not only an ERG, but like to someone who is living through this experience to give you direct data that you can then apply to your product. So that comes to mind. And other than that, we host non-structured conversations on topics selected by the community where, again, our point is to learn from one another, ask questions, and have a conversation. And one thing I want to call out is that as an ERG, Plus is open to everyone at the company. So there isn't like a criteria that you have to match in order to be admitted. And that's actually where our name comes from. It comes from the plus, from the LGBT plus community, ultimately because we want to add those conversations, we want to add the people, and we want to exchange those viewpoints. So I don't know if there's anything extra special about our organization. We're keeping it very casual, very conversational, even when it comes to more difficult topics that have to be broached.
As it should be, right? As it should be. Like where we started the conversation, like why is it a big deal? Because things have not been the same, but now it should be normal. This is what it should be. And I think to some of the points that have been made before, like whenever we look at any type of minority community, right? Anybody can jump in on that conversation, and you don't just get to say that you're an ally. It's a lifelong journey. There is no end goal. It's all about conversations and learning and letting humans be humans. And I have to say, like that article I posted about parenting is just like there's just so much to learn, so much to like we can trip up on not respecting a human being. So I'll keep my eyes and ears a lot more open. And I cannot thank you too. And we are missing Nenko here for starting this initiative. But let's circle back to some of the things I always ask my guests. I mean, and look at us, like we're already at 40 minutes and we can keep talking about this all day. But I want to come back and ask some questions that I normally ask. So I'll go with each of you. We all work in tech. So what is a really cool piece of technology that you have seen of late that excites you? Todor, do you want to go? And I have known Todor, by the way, for years.
Yeah,
Like I
sure.
have seen you like ship huge products. I've seen you like make huge switches in the type of technologies you deal with. So what excites you today?
It's exactly what you said. My mind was blown by the announcement yesterday that Windows 11 will be able to run natively Android applications. This was huge.
Good stuff.
And on the .NET front, actually, as a hobby, I'm participating in one of the open source lab experiments, the so-called Core RT, which is the technology which powers .NET 6 and maybe .NET 7 and enables developers to have a precompiled single file binary which runs on their cloud environments or their customers' machines. It's awesome. You just give that file and it runs. So it's really a magic.
Plenty of exciting things happening with .NET and Windows and Mac as well with Maui. But Mariyan, anything that you see excites you, like IoT, AR, VR, anything that you see?
I would say that I cannot go into the amount of detail that Todor had. I think that was a masterclass in answering this question. So I'll give credit where credit is due. But for me, one thing that actually really excites me is big data. And I know that it's not a very specific thing, but just in general, how much we can do with big data and how we're only scraping the surface of the surface at the moment. And like seeing it, how it progresses from virtually nothing to like the quick pace that it's gathering now. I'm hugely fascinated by it.
Nice, very nice. All right. We all appreciate all that you do for work, but what do you do outside of work? What fun stuff do you do? Mariyan, you go first.
So I actually put this on, not on purpose, but this is the horde symbol from World of Warcraft, which is one of the things I like doing after I finish work. It's a wonderful palate cleanser, I can say that much. But also I really like, I play D&D every Saturday, so that's another thing, like another tick on the geek box. And I really like listening to new music, watching movies, spending time with my nephews. By the way, that's such a fascinating thing to see a tiny little human growing and starting to pick up new things, learning to talk and all of that. So I think, always fun.
Absolutely. Todor, what do you do on weekends or nights?
Recently, I've been busy with the local LGBT community, trying to help people organize some public events. So it's keeping me occupied a lot.
That's
sometimes
phenomenal.
I have like a second work day after the first one ends.
Wow.
So I'm not
so
sure
nice.
this is a hobby.
No, but it is so great because, and I see this. So internally, we have an IND committee that kind of helps drive a lot of the efforts, and we have all of these ERGs. I am just blown away by the amount of work some of the people do. They are like literally activists going out on the streets trying to do the right thing, helping out their communities, because it's one thing, and it's great that, like we talked about, that like it's a privilege to be able to be in a workspace which is open and welcoming, but the reality outside may not be so nice. So that's very commendable of you, Todor, that you actually go out after your work day ends to continue this work. Yeah. All right. What's your favorite food or cuisine?
It's a good question. I can't pick just one. That's tough.
Okay,
I'll go with like a single option because I feel like that's what I'm craving this evening. I love Indian food, and I know that that's like an umbrella term for like way too many different cuisines. But I love everything that I've tried so far when eating anything that would be labeled as Indian.
Nice. Todor?
Well, in the good old times, we probably remember them. I used to travel a lot, so I was happy to just sample the cuisine at the place I'm
wherever you are.
I was staying.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one choice, that would be the fruit mangosteen. It is also known as the queen of fruit. So go to Thailand or Malaysia and try it. You will remember it for the rest of your life. With good.
All right, that's our goal then. Travel to parts of Asia, and and Ivana is here. Ivana is giving a shout out for what you're doing. So yeah. Okay, so to wrap things up, give me your parting thoughts or inspirations. And sometimes, like I ask this question of everybody that I interview, especially on the tech spectrum, like if you had $1 million, like what toys would you buy, or where would you put the money towards any good cause? But sometimes, like, money doesn't get you all the things you want, right? So if you had unlimited amount of money or time, what change would you want to see in the world right now?
I think if I could go first, the one thing that comes to mind is not so much something that you can buy, but something that we're, as a planet, hopefully moving towards. And that's, rather than letting other narratives decide our thinking, coming from a point of respecting differences, talking to people, asking questions, and ultimately figuring out what I think for myself based off my own experience, and how I can educate myself and how I can learn more, because there's so much more than each of us individually knows, experiences, or can try, taste, do within any one lifetime. And there's such opportunity out there that is just waiting for a conversation to start. And I think that's beautiful.
Well said. Beautifully said. Todor.
It's astonishing. Maybe we are talking too much with Mariyan, because my answer would be very similar. If I had the money, I would just let people go out and meet each other and talk to each other. Because if you don't talk to people, you don't understand people. And if you don't understand people, you hate people, or you fear them.
Yeah, that is so well said, and I commend, like, Mariyan, your words are just like difficult to follow. Like, you're so articulate in the things you say. That's amazing. And Todor, you're so heartfelt in the things you're saying. Like, and this is across the whole spectrum. Like, it's unbelievable that like when we hate, that's a choice. That is an absolute choice all across all diversity and all inclusion spectrums. That is a choice you're making, where we are not actively seeking out and learning more how to just be respectful to another human being. It should be simple. And, I mean, I've also had conversations with our IND folks where some people feel like they're kind of walking on eggshells. They're always scared of saying or doing the wrong things. And we are humans. We are going to make mistakes, right? As long as we ask, as long as we are always wanting to learn to do the right thing, I think that's fair game. All right, so yeah, like I said, we could talk about this for a long time, but Todor and Mariyan, I have known you two professionally for quite some time now. Todor for quite some time. I remember, like, way back in the days, like, we were doing NativeScript and JavaScript, and like you were doing, you switched so many things product wise. So I'm in awe of how much you can learn and ship code and products. And Mariyan, we are thankful for all that you do with our human capital. Well, we call it the people team, which is actually a much better term.
Yep.
Much better term.
Agreed. Hardcore agreed.
Yeah. So learning and making things available for all of us to grow. We are very thankful. Chad, thank you for hanging out with us. Great discussion today. We're taking the first step to at least learn to have an open conversation. And I think you said this right, Mariyan, like we have this like internal bias almost, that we feel like some conversations are not suited for the workplace. That it should all be about professionally what you're shipping, get your work done and get out, and then that's your personal life. But like, to what you and Todor have been saying, you're bringing yourself to work. And if you cannot be yourself, you're not doing yourself a service or your employer service. So thank you.
And if I could offer just one soundbite, this is one of the first things we wrote as Plus, had this thought in it that I found very impactful, even though it sounds like self-absorbed of me to say that, because I was part of like writing it anyway. And that was bringing yourself to work sounds revolutionary only when it's your default. because when it's not, you kind of like understand how there's like nuances and layers and layers and a lot of conversations to have. And I think this is very indicative of what not only Plus, but also earjuice in general are doing.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm hearing lawnmowers right outside my window. But that is very well said. And Eva has been out in the chat room having so many side conversations. Thank you so much, Eva, for chiming in on your thoughts. And thank you everybody on the chat room. This, like I said, I mean, it's a chat show. We don't share screen. We don't do code explicitly to have these conversations. So I'm very thankful, Eva, and to the whole chat room for hanging out with us. So yeah, that's it. It's Friday, and it's almost 5 o'clock. Well, it's actually close to 6 o'clock for the two of you in Sofia. So hopefully you get to relax after a long week and enjoy your weekend. And we got still a few more hours left for us here, work-wise. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing what you do and coming on and having an honest conversation.
And likewise, Sam, thank you for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for everything that you do, not only on Twitch and on the channel that you run, but also like in general. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, that's it going to be from us. So come see us on this channel, or any other broadcast. I think Alyssa should be streaming later on this afternoon. If not, we'll resume our regular shows starting next week. So be safe, be healthy, be productive, and we shall see you on the next stream. Okay, bye-bye.